All join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Put the palms down. All the way from San Francisco. So it's funny. I take a few photos around here, in case you didn't know. And I was outside across the street taking a photo this way, and I've seen it a million times. But there's the stop sign, and then there's on the road the 4 huge letters that spell stop. There was something about the way the photo was taken that the letters were just kind of expanded, and it was just odd. It just jumped out at me. I've seen it a million times. When we talk about meditation, we talk about Buddhist practice, we talk about all these things that seem like these active things that we have to go do. I have to meditate, or I have to be kind, or I have to cultivate compassion, or I have to practice patience, or I have to work on forgiveness. There's so many things that we actively and aggressively almost try to go do. And like I said, I've been looking at stop signs and the word stop as long as you all have, but there's something about seeing it at that moment that kind of just registered differently with me. And that's all I've been thinking about for the last 2 days, that there's so many times that really what we need to do is just stop. And it sounds so simple, but those of you who've listened to me long enough know that I try to take these Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. And a lot of times all we have to do is stop. And many of the challenges and difficulties and stresses and pressures and challenges that exist in our lives that put us in a place where we're trying to turn to meditation or Buddhist practice or something to feel better are still more things that we have to go do. And so since I saw that the last day or two, I've just been reflecting a lot differently on what would it be like to just stop more often, whether it means to physically stop. You go to places like Deer Park Monastery and they have the mindfulness bell and they hit it. And it's a few moments for everybody, no matter what you're doing, to just stop and pause and take a few deep breaths, right? Whether it's habitual patterns or behaviors. Anyone have some habits in here they'd like to break that aren't so healthy? We might have a couple left, no matter how long we practice, right? So sometimes it's a matter of just stopping, even if for a moment, right? I had a conversation with someone this morning who, they smoke cigarettes and they'd love to stop smoking cigarettes. And, it's any addictions or habits are very difficult to stop completely. But maybe just stop one. Just the one time he goes to pull that out. just stop. Even if 20 seconds later he pulls it out and starts smoking again, at least there was a little kind of glitch in the mind and in the habitual patterns and behaviors. If it's language, if it's the way we speak to people, if it's arguing, that is a constant challenge of ours. I'm sure nobody here argues with anyone ever, but next time that you get into an argument with somebody, maybe just stop. So just a reminder for us all that, as I always say, meditation, Buddhist practice doesn't have to be so complicated. It doesn't have to be so difficult. It doesn't have to be so esoteric. It's really the simplest things that if we pay attention to our daily actions, and that's our karma, what we think, what we say, and what we do. If we just pay attention to these things all day long, our lives drastically change. So fortunately for me, I walk in these doors a few times a day, and now every time I see the stop sign there, it's going to remind me differently than it ever has before. So, and even if you think of the initial, I would imagine, I don't know who invented the stop sign. Somebody had to invent it, right? I mean, somebody invented everything. But the reason it's there is why? Why are stop signs there to begin with? Like actual stop signs?
Reminders.
Reminders so we don't crash. What else? To look. What else? Mindfulness. Go ahead, Tom. It's like I can see it just spinning.
To stop.
To stop. Yeah. To keep us safe. They're really there to keep us safe. That's how I see it. And so when we look at karma and what we think and what we say and what we do and what could cause harm to ourselves, first and foremost, and then cause harm to others, these are just reminders to keep us safe. So with that, we'll do a meditation practice. Thank you to those who were brave enough in this sunny San Diego to come out in the rain. I know most people are home in bed right now. It's what tends to happen when it rains. So you brave souls are quite incredible. So a couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. Right? You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working? Is this not working? Are you doing it right? Are you doing it wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. Sounds, you'll hear them. Right? This is life. Life is filled with chaos and practice. Learning to get quiet within all of the chaos. Most important, don't expect anything. If you sit there waiting for some grand aha moments or deep realizations, you'll be pretty disappointed. So we're just going to sit and breathe. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on the cushion, just slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward, allows the back to straighten gently, shoulders are relaxed, hands are on the knees or in the lap, whatever's comfortable for you. If you're on the chairs or benches, also just trying to sit up straight. If you need to move during meditation, simply move. Movement doesn't make you a bad meditator. It just means your leg hurts. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth open or closed. Start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Gently guide the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice. Observing sensation of breath. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. turn attention, focus to the breath. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgment from the practice. Just sitting, breathing. Keeping the mind alert. Aware of each sound. Each thought. Each physical sensation. Yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. Where's your mind? Return attention, focus to the breath. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, wanting nothing but to sit and breathe. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe, knowing with each breath there's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, no one else to be. everything beautiful, just as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. And most important, the practice of meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit, hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samutpatti, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakening. He was no different than anyone in this room who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. So what that means very simply for all of us in this room, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in and where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's what we get every day. Practice of meditation is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way we've responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But to do all of that with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one, This practice is not necessarily easy. It's not necessarily fun, but it is the most important thing in your life. Taking care of mental, emotional health and well-being is the foundation of everything you do. Your family, your friends, your loved ones, your work, your school, crossing the street, driving. Everything you do starts with your mind and your heart. And this practice is simply learning to take care of them. And that's it. Try not to complicate this. It's becoming aware of what you think and what you say and what you do. Being kind towards yourself and being kind to others. That's it. I really believe that was the heart of the Buddha's message. And that's really difficult to do. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us, which is where we spend so much of our time, hoping this happens, hoping that happens, wishing this would happen, wishing that would happen. We spend so much time focused on everything outside of us, and we get really good at it, pushing to get stuff done. You know, I often feel like I have probably about 16-hour days. So the days can be tiring, they can be exhausting, but they can also be pleasant and enjoyable if you learn to appreciate each moment as you go through it. Right? Looking at what you do, what your intention is behind your actions, what your intention is behind your words, what your intention is behind how you treat people. You know, Carmen Lecture was here last night. I know a lot of you were here, and many have heard her over the years. She's been teaching for us for about 7, 8 years, but she's a Tibetan Buddhist nun of 40 years, professor at USD, was a girl from Malibu, a 20-year-old surfer girl, ended up in Japan, and 40 plus years later, she's been a Tibetan nun, and an incredible speaker, incredible heart, just a beautiful practice. And she talked about the beauty of kind of the ordinary and just being present with it. You know, and I think every day, but especially this time of year when we're so focused on holiday stuff and gratitude and appreciation and others and things like that, to remember that just everyday life as it is can be really beautiful. So we don't need necessarily anything else than we already have. All the happiness, all the joy, all the everything that we seek is already there within us. And coming back to the stopping that I talked about earlier, sometimes we just have to stop and recognize it. That we have everything we need in our lives right now to be perfectly at peace and happy. But it is the seeking and craving, desiring of things outside of what we already have that causes discomfort, angst. The Buddha called this dukkha. So really just finding appreciation in each moment as it arises and recognizing how special it really is to just be alive and have our breath and encounter people and face challenges and deal with those that annoy us. Anyone in here are people that annoy you? You know, I mean, like, phenomenal, right? You are alive. Congratulations. You get to live and have people annoy you. How phenomenal is that? You know? And I'm sure that we are not the ones that annoy anyone else ever. You know? I often joke and say somewhere else, some other meditation class or therapy or self-help, something elsewhere outside of these walls, somebody else is there because of us. You know? So, and the last thing I'll say, and then just I always prefer to open up to questions, is, you know, as we go through these, especially again this time of year, which gets hectic and is a really joyous, wonderful time. I talk about this a lot, but for a lot of people, it's a very painful time. It's a very difficult time. It's a very challenging time. And to please use this time to really reflect on taking care of yourself. Really look at the Buddhist teachings on compassion. And, you know, over the next 3 weeks or whatever it is, try to cultivate as much compassion for yourself as possible. And then the question often is, well, how do I do that? Right? How do I cultivate compassion? Well, the Buddha said that we suffer because of greed, anger, ignorance. being what's called the three poisons, second noble truth. And the way we overcome anger is compassion. So the way to practice self-compassion is to maybe, again, stop a few moments each day and explore in your life, what am I angry at with myself? What am I disappointed at? What am I frustrated at? Where do I feel I've let myself down? Okay. I'm sure some of us in here spend a few more than 5 minutes a day focusing on these things. And begin to kind of send a little bit of love, a little bit of kindness, a little bit of compassion to yourself. And try to open up the heart towards yourself and surrender to some of this anger or resentment or frustration or disappointment or sadness or whatever we have towards ourselves. Right? We're so hard on ourselves, so critical of ourselves. And as the great Zen master Shunryu Suzuki Roshi always said, you're all perfect exactly how you are. You all could use a little improvement. So try to have compassion for yourself. It makes each day a lot more pleasant. And as you work on that and you have your heart a little more open towards yourself, it then makes it a lot easier to do that towards others. And then people will thank you. So with that, I'll stop rambling and just open up to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice.
Last night's guest speaker said that mantras are good for meditation. If we're somewhere where we have a few minutes to meditate, but like say at work where it may not be practical to say the mantra out loud, would it still be effective to think the mantra for meditating, or in that situation is it better to just kind of focus on breathing?
I have no idea what would work for you. But here's what I would suggest. Try it. Right? You know, if you're at work and you have a responsibility to do whatever that job is, you know, imagine this just popped into my head, like a customer service job, or, you're on the phone with people all day long and you're taking a phone call, right? Customer service, or you're checking people out as you're working at Starbucks, stopping and saying mantras out loud while they're trying to purchase their latte probably is not going to work so well, right? So try it to yourself. See what happens. I think anything that we can do can be beneficial, but I call this, my suggestion is don't worry about making everything so Buddhist. And what I mean by that is abandon the word mantra for a minute. So meditation is extremely beneficial to stay in the present moment. And so we get wrapped up in thinking I need to go meditate, or I need to sit and meditate. And I need to try to stay present and focus on my breath and meditate, right? Because that's going to make everything better. Not necessarily. So we introduce a mantra practice, thinking that will help stay present. But as you just alluded to, there will be times where it might not be so appropriate to do mantra practice. Whatever your work is, my suggestion is make that a meditation. All meditation is a concentration and focus on the present moment. If we focus on the breath, if we focus on a mantra, if we focus on a shoe or a bottle of water, if you focus on one thing for a short period of time, what are you not focused on? Everything else. And when you focus on everything else, how does that tend to make you feel? It puts you here on a Saturday morning at 11 o'clock, right? Stressed out, overwhelmed, anxious, trying to get through our days and stay sane. Use your work, since you gave that example, as your meditative practice. Become fully present and one with what you are doing. Right? If you're eating, pay attention to eating. If you're handing somebody a cup of coffee, pay attention to handing a cup of coffee. Because if all of your attention and focus is on that action, you are present. And that's the reason we do, to me, one of the reasons we do meditation to begin with, is to learn to stay present. So when I say don't worry about it making it so Buddhist, Buddhism can often confuse us because we think we have to do things a certain way. And that means it's being Buddhist, and that means it's helping, right? If you're brushing your teeth, man, just brush your teeth. But don't brush your teeth and thinking about all the problems in your life. Just be grateful that you have teeth to brush. Because someday you might not. Does that help? Yeah.
I wanted to share a practice relating to stop that was taught to me. It was kind of in the context of like when you're ruminating on really negative things or a painful memory. So the idea of stop was you say stop to yourself, and then as you stop, and then you take a few breaths, And then the O is you kind of observe yourself. Oh, I'm doing it again. I'm ruminating, which I do a lot. And then the P is proceed with compassion.
That's
So
great.
I try to remember that. It doesn't always work, but it is, because you get in those loops. Sometimes it's really hard to get out.
Definitely. And this is going to really mess up my driving because, man, I roll through way too many stop signs. So, yeah. Other thoughts, questions? Yeah.
Last night, she mentioned the meditation that Alice Kamala did when she had leprosy. I was trying to look it up this morning. It's called mantra or something. Do you know how to spell that?
I don't. I'll ask her and I'll get that specific. There are some sutras and teachings out there specifically for health that I'll find out and I'll let you know. You know, it's important to keep in mind, and this is what, part of what Lexi was talking about last night, is a lot of, if you come to Buddhism as a Western person or as a person who was raised not Buddhist, then we tend to look at meditation and Buddhist practice much later in life as therapy, as self-help, as mental, emotional type of stuff. That's what most people come to Buddhism for, right? As I often say, most of you are not here to make sure you have a positive rebirth, right? You didn't wake up this morning and say, I want to make sure I have a good rebirth, so I'm going to go to meditation at 11 o'clock. We're here because we want to deal with the stress and anger and anxiety, sadness, depression, and things that go on in our lives. But where she's coming from, as a Tibetan Buddhist nun of 40 years and someone who's very much a devout, faithful, religious Buddhist, is that that's 2,500 years of history and religion and culture that exists going back to the time of the Buddha, where having great faith in Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, not much differently than having great faith in, any other God or Jesus or any other religious figure. So again, for a lot of people who are new to Buddhism, many people come to this like, I'm not so much into that. I'm kind of over that part. So I'll check out that Buddhism thing, It's a beautiful religious faith and practice. And so people will absolutely, and this is just for everybody, not just that question, but people will absolutely around the world, you go to different countries, and there's great faith in Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and Dharma protectors. I pray to them every single day, So I drank the Kool-Aid. Yeah, I see a hand in the back, I think.
Yeah, I was sitting and meditating, and I was focusing on the moment, and I noticed all these feelings coming up. And as I focused on the feeling, it wasn't just like you said, appreciation, right? Like, I don't say appreciation. I just feel it. And I sit with that feeling, and it feels like it transforms into something else, and I'm not sure what it is, but it feels like awakening, and when I go and do other things, like the gentleman was talking about working, since I've sat with that kind of feeling, then I'm feeling the work I'm doing, and now that's the process of my meditation when I'm working or doing something. It's like I feel what I'm doing and I'm aware of it.
So are you saying there's a difference in the feeling you have for meditation and the feeling you have when you're working?
I'm saying it's similar.
Okay, great.
It's similar, and it's very like I'd say it's alert of the process that's occurring.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in the Zen practice, the entire body of the teaching is learning to become present with things as they are.
Right.
One of the names of the Buddha, Tathagata, means suchness, things as they are. And so often we get wrapped up in this, kind of facade or illusion that if we go to a Buddhist place or we go to a meditation place or we say mantras or we do these Buddhist things, that means we're being Buddhist. And this practice isn't about being Buddhist, right? It's about being aware of present moment. And to me, what I've learned from this practice is your entire life really is a meditation practice. Sometimes we're better at it than others. So, and from the sitting in meditation and the awareness of things as they arise, that's important. and to try to go beyond labeling them or judging them or critiquing them. Often if you're an angry person who meditates, you're just an angry meditator, right? The meditation doesn't get rid of the anger, but to recognize the anger as it arises or whatever emotion it might be, right? I talk about anger a lot because that's what I had when I was a kid. So if anger arose in me, then I would quickly act on it. And so as you sat back there for 20 minutes and you had these feelings, as we all did, right? As the Buddha taught pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, all of us sat here for 20 minutes and we had pleasant thoughts, we had unpleasant thoughts, and we had neutral thoughts. We had pleasant feelings and emotions, unpleasant feelings and emotions, and neutral feelings and emotions. But here's the key for those 20 minutes. What did you all do with those thoughts and feelings and emotions? Nothing. No one yelled at anyone unless you did it really quietly, right? Nobody kicked anyone unless, I don't know, maybe you did and they kicked you back, who knows, right? But we sat with the emotions and feelings as they were there, and we didn't act on them. And this is where learning to be with things as they arise is extremely important, because the rest of your day, which we'll wrap up here in a few moments, probably won't be this quiet. It probably won't be this slow, right? And so we don't do this to be good here. We do this so when we go through our day and we're triggered by every person, place, and thing out there that doesn't tell us what we want to hear and doesn't turn out how we want it to turn out, that we don't allow that to destroy our minds and our hearts. Right? You got all day long and you're going to face a million things out there that won't go how you want it to. And some that will go how you want it to. But the question is, how are you going to respond to that? So all that we did here, to me, this is just practice. That's why it's called a practice. Be with these emotions. And one of the important pieces of being with the emotions is, what happens with these emotions? They pass. One day we're in a really great mood. That lasts for a couple hours or a couple minutes, and then done. And then we're in a really bad mood. That lasts for like 4 days, and then done. Then we get a couple hours of a good mood again, and then the 4 days are back, right? So our entire life is just a constant flow of emotions. So when these emotions arise, whether it's in meditation or anything throughout your day, appreciate them and recognize this too shall pass. And that's the impermanence as the Buddha taught, So we'll do one more before we wrap up here. Yeah.
Do you think emotion is like part of the big mind?
Well, in the last 3 minutes that I try to sum this up, I'd have to first understand what you mean by the big mind. I mean, are you talking from like Buddhist teachings about big mind, or does big mind have some meaning to you, or both?
Like Suzuki Roshi?
Okay. So in Buddhism, there's what's referred to as conventional reality, ultimate reality, right? And conventional reality is, well, I'll start with saying it this way. There's one of my favorite Zen kind of expressions is, before studying Zen, mountains are mountains and rivers are rivers. While studying Zen, mountains are no longer mountains and rivers are no longer rivers. After studying Zen, mountains are again mountains and rivers are again rivers. Right? And what that means is it's really getting to the empty nature of all phenomena without getting too philosophical in the last couple minutes here. But it's to understand that if you can't swim, don't jump into a river. If you can't fly, don't jump off a mountain. Right? So to say that these things aren't actually what they are is quite dangerous in the big mind ultimate sense of the way. Right? To say that you're Buddhist and you understand that you're just going to kind of be this constant flow of consciousness going through your day isn't going to help you with your job or relationships or anything else, right? Does that make sense so far? I'm trying to answer it on the level that you're kind of asking it. That's why I asked about big mind, right? Yeah. And I've studied a lot of, Suzuki Roshi. That's really, to me, the heart of my practice comes from his teachings. And in Buddhism, they call it the Alaya Vijnana, the storehouse consciousness. And in the Heart Sutra, it talks about eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind, no sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, or thought. So we are driven by our senses our entire life. Right? If you're not familiar with the Heart Sutra, Google it and spend the rest of your life reading it and trying to put it into your life. It makes no sense whatsoever. I'll make it really easy for you, right? The heart of Buddhist teaching says there's suffering, the cause of suffering, the ending of suffering, and the path, which is the Eightfold Path. The Heart Sutra said there's no suffering, there's no cause of suffering, there's no cessation of suffering, and there is no path. It is all an illusion, right? Big mind, small mind, conventional reality, ultimate reality. We are driven by our senses. Everything we see, taste, touch, smell, hear, we like, we crave, we desire, we go towards it. Then we get it, we lose it, we're destroyed. Everything we see, smell, touch, taste, hear, we don't like, we have an aversion to it, we run from it. So our entire life is running towards craving and desire and running away from our aversions. This is the small mind being driven by our very human emotions. These emotions aren't going away. And that's why I use the mountain river example. To think that we can kind of go beyond these emotions as just regular folks sitting in here, I don't think that way at all. I don't wake up one day and think like, is today the day I'm going to be awakened and understand the big mind? No, I wake up and say, can I be less of an a-hole today than I was yesterday? Can I be kinder today than I was yesterday? Can I be less greedy today than I was yesterday? Right? So it's cool to read stuff like that. I think it's very important to learn and to see it intellectually from these sides. But on a conventional, practical sense, to roam around through our day thinking, okay, I'm going to be in the big mind today. Well, that's the small mind telling yourself you're trying to be in the big mind. Ultimately, the big mind and small mind fall away. Suzuki Roshi really is within the Soto Zen school. Dogen is the founder of the Soto Zen school from 1200 to 1253, and he would call it beyond thinking, to go beyond thought and abide in sensation of breath. When you find absolute beauty and joy and peace just in sensation of breath, everything else goes away. But then you still got to eat. You still got to hug people. You still got to pay your bills. Right? Nobody cares how Buddhist you are. Does that help? Yeah. So I'm going to close on that. We'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to those who need it most. So a few quick announcements before you all head out. Thanks for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened up this temple 13 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to local folks. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students. We're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. Every night we have different practices going on. Every Thursday, I think probably one of the best things around here, it's a food distribution program. So we prepare gourmet vegetarian meals and we feed a few hundred people who sleep on the street. So anytime you think your life sucks and you kind of lack gratitude, feed people, put their head on the sidewalk every night. It tends to put things into perspective. First Saturday month, which was this morning. So I appreciate y'all keeping it down. We had probably 30 people downstairs doing a half day of silence. So if you've never done it, you have a whole month to work up to it. It's 4 hours of silence. I promise you will live. I think everybody survived this morning. You're stuck with the one thing that brings all the joy and all the happiness and all the pain in your life, and that's you for 4 hours. So it's a beautiful practice. A couple things out of the ordinary, just so you know, with the holiday season, we don't cancel anything. We don't change anything. Our doors are always open just as usual. As I alluded to earlier, this is often a very difficult time for people, and so often people need a place like this the most. So it's here for you. The schedule is normal. We do have our 14th annual New Year's Eve celebration, Dharma Bum style. We'll do a potluck at 7 o'clock. 9 o'clock, I'll do a history and kind of story about the Dharma Bum Temple. And then about 11:30, 11:40, we gather in the meditation hall here, and we'll do a silent meditation going into midnight. The whole night's not silent, just the last 20 minutes. So if you've never done a silent and sober New Year's, this is your chance to get them both done out of the way. I promise you'll live. It won't ruin your year, but it's kind of neat to take in the new year silently and sober and listen to all the madness around us. So other than that, if I never see you again, think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds. That's the heart of the practice. Thank you all for being here, and good luck.
Bye.